Welcome to this edition of Men Talking Mindfulness with your hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. On this show, we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives to unpack some of the complex challenges we face today by leveraging meditation and mindfulness practices. Each discussion is an environment free of judgment and criticism with a focus on vulnerability, authenticity, and inner peace. Let's dig in.
What's up, Will?
Wow, what's up, John? Yeah, all right, we're back. Hello, everybody.
What's up,
we're
man?
Trying new things here.
Hey, we're just having some fun, right?
We're always excited you guys are here. Hey, so in case you don't know where you are right now, welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. We're excited and thankful for all of you tuning in. We're going to talk about narcissism and narcissists today, how to deal with them, how to recognize and even eliminate elements of narcissism within yourself. We all know people that are grandiose, have grandiose ideas about themselves, feel they are super special, so much so that they need to take all the attention in the room all the time, and will do anything to get it. Often these types of people will put others down so they can build themselves up. These people are called narcissists. Although this psychological disorder only affects about 1% of the population, when you come in contact with a narcissist, they affect the entire population in the room. You may encounter them at work, in your families, in your neighborhood. So John and I have decided to take this episode to break down what narcissistic personality is and how to effectively navigate your way through this challenging relationship or circumstances. As you may know, John and I are not therapists, nor do we pretend to be. By listening to this full episode, we hope that you walk away with the following. What is narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, and who it is not, the different types of NPD, their characteristics, what to do with the narcissist in your lives, and how to set the necessary boundaries with them. Personally, this episode is a little tricky for me. I know people that are like this, and they might actually be listening.
Are you talking about me, Will?
Yeah,
That's a little messed up, man.
Well, shit, John. Like, I was going to call you out later for being a fucking narcissist, but just kidding. But no, John. Like, I don't think I could work with you, John, if you're a narcissist. Like, it just would not. As you know, and as I was doing this research in the show, as John just kind of mentioned, I was thinking like I might be a narcissist too. So again, everybody, welcome to the show. And we'll define, I guess, why we're not narcissists later as we go through, John, which is maybe a narcissistic way of approaching the show, defending ourselves. But, John, great to see you. Great to be back for another wonderful episode.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Will.
Same, brother.
Excited to get in this conversation, as always. Had some really powerful episodes lined up the past few episodes, and then we had the molecule of more lined up for today. If you see on our website, that has been rescheduled. We'll get that on the calendar here in the coming weeks. But we decided to do a solo show with just me and Will, and we're going to be covering that narcissistic behavior, everything that Will covered there. So we're excited to do that. That said, a couple of announcements. Our new merch store, we're going to be getting that up online here soon. It's going to be on our website. And what we've done in the past is we've opened up a merch store, taken orders, closed the merch store, and then sent the orders out. This merch store is going to be a standing merch store. It's out there. It stays open. And once you order the stuff, it's going to be delivered to you in a few days. So it's going to be a little different than what we've done in the past, and we're excited to get that up online. Also, we're going to start doing, excuse me, I got something in my mouth. Jeez. Leftover breakfast.
Come on, John.
Just gross. my little girl, my baby girl, instead of saying gross, she says, ew, roast. So there you go. Ew, roast. Anyway, hey, we're going to start doing episodes where we answer your questions. And these questions, they're going to come to the show in the form of voice memos. And those voice memos will be played live right here on the show. So if you'd like to send us a voice memo to be played and answered on the show, simply text the letters MTM to 33777, and you'll get the link to record that voice memo. And if you don't want to text, just visit sayhi.chat/MTM. That's sayhi talking.chat/MTM, and you'll get the same thing. You just simply record your memo right there. And we're super excited to have your guys' voices on the show. So send those voice memos in. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have there. They can be about mindfulness. They can be about hydration. They can be about health, wellness. They can be about me and Will and our personal habits. Whatever you want to ask us, please send those voice memos in. We'd be happy to answer those on the air. And then lastly,
play them on the air too.
We are. Yeah, we're going to play them on the air. You're going to hear your voice.
Asshole, you sound like an asshole on the air. Anyway, you know what I mean? So, that's going to be kind of fun. And maybe we can actually, John, as we move through this, and we're developing continually here at Men Talking Mindfulness. We might even play that. We had ideas of playing them at the end of the show, maybe just one.
Yeah. So we may
have
we'll play with it.
Play with it.
John, yeah. Yeah. So lastly, subscribe to our IG, our Instagram at Men Talking Mindfulness, and our YouTube, and make sure you hit that little bell to get notified of new content. We're putting out new content all the time. It's not just the weekly show. We're putting out new shorts. We're putting out stuff from us, but there's also other stuff that we find online that we want to share that either motivates or inspires you guys. There's lots of content that we're putting out. So subscribe, and the link is simply youtube.com/@Men Talking Mindfulness. So youtube.com/@Men Talking Mindfulness. All right, that was a lot. So let's get into our opening practice. If you've never tuned into the show before, the way Will and I do this is we kind of bookend the show with a mindfulness practice, grounding ourselves, grounding our audience, and when we have our guests, grounding our guests, or helping to, or trying to anyway. So let's get into that. We're going to just do simple 5-breath exercise. And to do that, what we're going to do is a 5-breath box breath. So what that's going to look like is you're going to inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and we're going to do that 5 times. So let's begin by exhaling as much as we can before we start. Nice deep breath in for 4. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Holding for 4, 3, 2, 1. That's 1. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. That's 2. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 4, 3, 1. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. And hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. And that is it. That is simple box breathing. You can do that just about anywhere, any place. I didn't even open it up for you, right? I just jump right in, and that's what you can do. You can just jump right into that box breath anywhere, anytime. You can do that while you're driving. You can do it behind your keyboard. It's safe, obviously keeping your eyes open. But that's the box breath, and that's got me grounded, and hopefully got you all as the audience grounded. So let's jump in. Let's jump into what the narcissist is. What is narcissism? How do you want to start this, Will?
Let's go with the baseline. We've got to establish a baseline, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is narcissism? And we did quite a bit of research on this. A lot of it comes from Wiki, which we always go to as a consistent resource, because you can find so much other information in there as well. But we're going to talk about 4 different types. But let's talk about, there are 9 criteria, right? But to be considered to have NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, you only need to express 5 of these. So here are the 9. The first one is a grandiose sense of self-importance. All right. Another one, preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, and ideal love. Right? So preoccupation with it, with your fantasies of all those things: success, power, brilliance, beauty, and ideal love. Believing, right, that people with narcissistic personality disorder believe that they are special and unique and can only be understood by or should be associated with other special or high status people or institutions. Number 4, right, requiring excessive admiration. And Jon has a little reference here to the Little Prince. So.
Yeah. If you've ever read the book or seen the movie The Little Prince, there's one character in it that specifically asks for adoration and admiration, and he puts on a specific hat and he says, "Doesn't it look good? Won't you please tell me how good it looks?" And that's what that specific trait of a narcissist looks like to me, or reminded me of. So I just wanted to make sure we took a little pause there. That's why I have that in the notes, the Little Prince notes.
Yeah. I'll read the next one and you got the rest, Jon. So another characteristic is a sense of entitlement. And in parentheses, we have our unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with their expectations. So a sense of entitlement is a big part of a narcissistic personality. Jon, take away the last 4.
Yeah, so the last 4 that we have here in this list are being interpersonally exploitative. And that's taking advantage of others to achieve their own needs. And I'm sure I see some comments coming in on the side here about relatives, husbands, spouses. I know several narcissists that are out there that I've been related to either by blood or through marriage or whatever the case. It's a tough thing, and they can be just that interpersonal exploitation. They lack empathy, so that if you personally have something going on, they won't acknowledge it because everything they have going on in their lives is more important. They're unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. And then they're often envious of others or believe that others are envious of them. And then they show arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. And yeah, we'll cover this in the beginning. It's 0.5% to 1% of our population has the narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I see some comments coming in. Hey, I think it's more than 1%. 1%. Wow, question mark. Hey, there may be a higher percentage who have and show these traits, but may not have the actual diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. So that there's definitely overlap there between those who show some of these traits and those who are actually diagnosed with this NPD. So from the NPD, there's 4 types of narcissism, and Will and I were discussing that before we hit record. I'll go through a couple here, Will, and then you want to cover a couple. So the 4 types. Number 1 is the classic narcissist, which is high functioning and is an exhibitionist. So egotistical, attention seeking, entitled, lacks empathy, and unable to read the room. How many of us have been in a room with a person that is totally unable to read the room? I know I have.
Oh my God. And I shake my head. I'm like, I can't believe that this is what's happening right now. Like, they have no idea that there's 20 other people here that are trying to do the same thing and need their own time to do it. And they're literally hogging the entire space.
Yes, 100%. Like completely unable to read the room. So, and then again from Wiki, further in this, it's associated that classic narcissist is associated with significant functional impairment and psychosocial disability, which includes self-centeredness, grandiosity, attention-seeking, entitlement, and egocentricity, and a lack of empathy, which is callousness, ruthlessness, manipulativeness, interpersonal exploitativeness, and hostility. They refuse to take risks in order to avoid failure or appearance of failure. I got to stop here because this is where I have definitely displayed narcissistic traits myself. So I'll stop here with the story, please, and then I'll come back.
Read it out.
So I've shared this in some of my keynote speaking, in that we as people, as leaders, we need to get used to failure. We need to get used to and comfortable with fear. And in Navy SEAL training, BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, out in Coronado, California. It takes place in front of the beautiful Hotel Del Coronado. And there's an event that we do in SEAL training called rock portage. And rock portage is taking these inflatable boats and rowing them past the surf. So now you're out where it's nice and calm, or at least calmer. And then rowing them over from the training compound over to in front of the Hotel Del. And then catching a wave with these boats to the rocks and landing these inflatable boats on the rocks, which sounds easy with me saying that, but it's not easy. It's kind of ugly. You get thrown on the rocks. People get trashed. People get hurt. Things break. Yeah, it's very dangerous. It's one of the more dangerous events that we do. We call these events evolutions. I don't know why we call them, but it's a dangerous evolution. And in the daytime, it's kind of fun because you see what's happening, and then on the beach you can see that there's a whole lot of tourists lined up to watch the Navy SEALs doing this training, right? And so you want to impress them, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I got this. I'm so cool." And there's definitely the narcissistic side there. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about what happened later that night. So the same thing, fast forward 6-8 hours, whatever it is. Now we're doing it in the middle of the night, and there's no tourists there to watch it. So you can't see the rocks very well. You can hear the waves crashing behind you, and it's dangerous. And it's quite honestly, it's a terrifying experience somewhat. It's fun, but it's also terrifying. But I was more afraid of failure than I was afraid of being hurt, or afraid of the rocks, or afraid of the waves. I was more afraid of failure and looking bad.
What would failure do for you in this circumstance, Jon? Just to what did that failure mean? You know what I mean? You fail?
It means that you don't land your boat on the rocks perfectly. Failure is, in my eyes, at that point, in this specific instance, failure was imperfection. And I was afraid of that imperfection. So I waited. I have a whole boat crew. I'm a boat crew leader. I'm an officer in the training. I'm not a SEAL yet, but I'm an officer waiting to become a SEAL, or training to become a SEAL. And we look around, and there's all these other boats, and they're taking these waves, and they're imperfect waves. They're like kind of choppy. It doesn't look right. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're waiting. And the guys in my boat crew are like, hey sir, are we going? I'm like, not yet. We're waiting for the perfect wave. And finally, the perfect wave comes, and we catch this perfect wave and we land perfectly, and we do everything perfectly. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, hell yeah, we nailed that. And then from behind the rocks, I hear the instructors yell, Mr. McCaskill, where the hell have you and your boat crew been? And I came back, and I was like, Instructor so-and-so, we were waiting for the perfect wave. And that was the wrong answer. They're like, oh, you think things are going to be perfect on the battlefield? Do you think things in wartime are perfect? Which, of course, they're not. So I had to pay the price. Like, I had to do push-ups and sit-ups and get muddy and all this stuff. But guess who was right next to me doing that? My men who were on my boat. They were paying the price for my fear of imperfection. So why I'm telling this story right here is that it ties directly into I refuse to take a risk in order to avoid failure or the appearance of failure. I didn't want to appear bad. I didn't want to appear imperfect. So I was totally being narcissistic, and that's a lesson that I learned and carried with me for the rest of my naval career, and hopefully applied it through the rest of my naval career. I have to, if anyone that worked for me or with me is listening, and you have a different opinion, let me know.
Well, I work with you, Jon, and like look at the way we started the show today,
right? Yeah, imperfect, right? Having some fun
all the time.
Yeah. I think if you tuned in early enough, you may have even heard me and Will say, "Hey, we're going to walk in the background." Anyway, so that's the classic narcissist, right? The last point on that classic narcissist is the psychological inability to tolerate disagreement, contradiction, and criticism. It makes it difficult for persons with NPD to work cooperatively or to maintain long-term professional relationships with superiors and colleagues. All right, so that is the classic narcissist. The next type is the malignant narcissist. That's all the classic qualities, and they seek to hurt people. The pursuit of power and control. They are mean. They weaponize circumstances for selfish gains. They wreck people's lives. So they are truly active narcissists. They want to make everybody else worse so that they can feel better. That's the malignant narcissist. And then we've got two more, and I'll let Will cover those next two.
Yeah, we have, and this reminds me, it's Buster. Buster, I'm thinking of like Arrested Development. It's just a bunch of narcissistic personalities.
I love Arrested Development, man.
This is Buster. If you remember Arrested Development, remember Buster. Buster plays the victim, right? I mean, so this is a fragile, covert narcissism. Narcissist is what this category is called, or what this third type of narcissism is. So again, fragile and covert narcissist plays the victim along with expressing all the classic narcissistic personality qualities. This type is defined by the feelings of shame, envy, resentment, and inferiority, which is occasionally masked by arrogance. There's also a sense of entitlement, a belief that one is misunderstood or underappreciated, and excessive reactivity to slights or criticism. Constantly, again, play the victim. And, so I have a quote here. They feel they are so special. How can anyone do this to them, right? They try to control from the top down, right, and inside out, right? Instead of manipulating you in the environment, they try to manipulate you from the inside out. So that is what a fragile or covert narcissist is. And they really just play with your feelings because they're so, wrapped up in their own emotions, and they want everyone to feel exactly the way they are. So they manipulate you and your feelings in order
Would that be, what's it called? Is it gaslighting?
Oh, big time. Yeah, gaslighting is a huge characteristic of all narcissists. But yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Part of this.
Yeah,
absolutely. So then the last one is your communal narcissist. And we see this play out quite a bit on social media. Right? Communal narcissist is a form of narcissism that occurs in group settings. It's characterized by an inflated sense of importance and the need for admiration through others. In relation to the grandiose narcissist, a communal narcissist is arrogant, self-motivating, and shares the sense of entitlement and grandiosity. However, the communal narcissist seeks power and admiration in the communal realm. They see themselves as altruistic, saintly, caring, helpful, and warm. Individuals who display communal narcissism often seek out positions of power and influence within their groups, and will do anything to get attention and don't care how they get it. Social media attention, social media attention sluts is what I wrote. Sorry.
I get it.
Uncut, unapologetic. But those are the four, and there are other sub categories, but these are the main four that are recognized, in the, scientific and sociological literature.
Well, we've got a couple of comments here about whether or not this show is live. Yes, this particular episode is live. We're recording it right as you guys are watching it. And then I've also got a few people that I would like to ask you all. Some of you have said that you're married to a narcissist, or that your mother was a narcissist, or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to ask you this, Will. I'm going to ask this to you too, Will. But if you're listening, if you're watching live right now, so it is Wednesday, July 26th, 11:24 Mountain Standard Time, Mountain Daylight Savings Time, actually, right now. But if you're listening live, watching live, what do you feel regular interactions with a narcissist individual may look like? What does that look like? What does it feel like?
Because I honestly have some. I've known some narcissists. They're still in my life. I've known narcissists now. I just because of their need for constant attention and their need to manipulate the environment in order to get their attention. I've always feel like personally, I just don't feel like they give a shit at all about anything I say, everything I do, anything that comes out of my mouth. So it's really, I just feel a huge sense of emptiness in those relationships. Huge sense of emptiness. Like, what I'll say, John, is I don't think, as we're reading through those characteristics, like, I don't think, I'm not a narcissist, because like I have empathy, I care, I really listen, I really try to engage with people in a meaningful way, and like, and really, I'm patient. I'm not trying to manipulate environment or trying to manipulate people in order to get my way. Like sometimes I go with the flow and let things kind of, really happen the way they should in the moment. But also, I think but I really try to continually seek that a real connection with people. Like all the time, whether we're the show, I'm always trying to listen. I'm always trying to see what you're doing, but not even like just the audio, or the verbal cues, but also like looking at the behavior, taking them in, and not just waiting. Like one thing that I think, active listening, and active listening isn't, is just waiting to speak. Right? Or like, I guess a narcissist would use the language that's coming out of someone's mouth in order to manipulate them in some way, or at least grab their attention in some way.
Right.
That's what I just feel, an emptiness when I'm around a narcissist, because it's all about them. It's all, whatever it is. Like, I had, for a long time in my family, they're no longer with our family anymore. They're kind of divorced from the family. They had that fragile, covert narcissist. Everything was a fucking problem. They were all constantly trying to, even before they entered the room, they'd be like, "Oh, I'm so tired." Or I'm like, "Oh, you can just feel they're always life is so hard, and please have pity for me all the time." Like, oh my God. And then like, you can even tell when you're interacting and trying to really connect, like with a person, and a person that's a narcissist, it's just empty. They just have like a shield up. You can just see that I'm just like, they don't even give a fuck that I exist right now. They're just waiting to speak, or waiting to, talk about their problems, instead of really taking you in, and, in an empathic way. I'd be like, "Oh, wow, Will," or "Wow, John." I'm like, "Wow, that's a really difficult circumstance." Like, tell me a little more. So anyway, that's that. I mean, I've experienced this.
For sure.
And it's annoying. And what I do is I try to eliminate, because I don't want to waste my time, in these circumstances, or with these types of people. So I just limit my time with them, or I've just kind of cut them out completely, because it's like,
got to recognize it right off the bat, or it's maybe not right off the bat. Maybe they are even really good at being that covert narcissist, hiding it for a while, and then it comes out. But when you realize it comes out, if you're in a position to either address it or cut them out, I think that's an important step that we have to be able to take. And I want to read a couple of comments here that people made. Well, number one, we do have a podcast. So someone said, "Is this going to be play again?" Right? I hope this is available to replay. Right? So hey, Rick, hey, thanks for tuning in today. It must be one of your first time. We do release this on podcast on Monday, so check out Men Talking Mindfulness on whatever. And it is on
listening at podcast anytime. You can
YouTube as well.
Mow your grass, and here it is. So anyway, John, I don't
yeah,
cut you off,
so yes, and it is also available on YouTube. So there's another plug. But let's see. We've got somebody saying, "I was married to a narcissist for 20 years. Took me a long time to work it out, and have seen internet narcissists in the recent months." Another one is that the narcissist's lack empathy is crucial, and tearing down the one they are supposed to love to build themselves up is heartbreaking. Absolutely. I have seen that. Absolutely. Another one, exhausting, draining. Emptiness is totally correct. It is painful. It's painful mentally, emotionally, and physically. So we've got a lot of great comments coming in. So thank you for participating. Great stuff here. It's extremely draining. I'm going through a divorce now and realize how she was a covert narcissist and gaslighted me for years. So we feel you. And that's why we're doing this episode is so that we can help to highlight these aspects or attributes of the narcissist, and then either address them or walk away from the narcissist.
Yeah, we're going to get into the boundaries and stuff that are needed a little bit later from our research and from our own experience as well. Thanks for your comments. Keep having them flowing.
Please. These are great.
As you roll through. Yeah, really great. I mean, it's amazing. I know someone wrote, "Is it really just 1%? That's what it is now. It could be, I think also as I was studying this, it could be higher in different populations. Like someone mentioned their father was in the film industry. So there might be more narcissists in LA versus somewhere in West Virginia or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of narcissists in New York City for sure. And we have 8.5 million people here, so you're going to probably run into more of them. Plus, if you come back to the first type of that narcissism, like classic or high functioning narcissist and exhibitionists, like I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, John, as well. It's like these are, you can really be a go-getter as a narcissist. It's not like you're failing everywhere in your life.
Yeah,
like you can really achieve quite a bit. Go ahead, John.
I think that's an important point. There's a distinction, and we're going to cover this, a distinction between, having a healthy self-esteem, and we've talked about on the show having that self-compassion as well, and then narcissism. And then there's also, I would say, there are times when there are parts of narcissism that can be a positive thing, right? Leadership. Like you probably won't step up to a leadership role if you don't have that competitive side and that high self-esteem. But that can become problematic if you are a leader who is narcissistic. Then you start lacking empathy for the people that work for you or that you work with, and that causes problems throughout the organization, causes toxic cultures, right? Yeah. So we have to be aware of that. Now, how do the healthy self-esteem and that self-compassion that we talked about earlier this season, or rather last season, how do they differ from from narcissism? Well, again, that healthy self-esteem, that's about respecting yourself. And quite frankly, somebody with a healthy self-esteem not only respects themselves, but also respects those around them. Whereas the narcissist, they feel that they need that constant feedback. Hey, I am either actively getting that constant feedback, or I'm going to start breaking everybody else down around me actively so that I can feel better without being lifted up. I'm just going to knock everybody else down around me. So that always, or rather often, comes at the expense of others. Yeah, and I think that's the difference.
Right? Egocentric, grab attention. And it's funny, John, you talked about leadership and versus, but we had a couple episodes, boss versus leader, and I have it here on my desktop. The qualities between a boss versus a leader, and the boss is definitely more of that narcissistic personality. Not saying they are, but just listen to the qualities we've already talked about as with what a narcissistic personality person is, and listen to the qualities of a boss. And then I'm going to cross over into what a leader is, right? So a boss, and think of like in terms of narcissism as well, a boss is an individual who is in charge of the employees or an organization. Okay, so in charge, right? And their characteristic, they drive employees, they depend on authority, they inspires fear, they say I, all about me, right? Places blame for breakdowns, right? That's definitely, because again, it's like they're perfect, so everyone else is the problem, right? And not me, right? They knows how it is done, right? So again, no ability to like beginner's mindset, no humility, no like, wait, you know what? You're the expert here, John. I should really listen to you. So even as the authority figure here or the boss here, let me just listen because you have 15 years of experience or whatever we're talking about, and I have almost none, right? So you should really listen and be humble, and instead of like, oh, I know. They use people, they take credit. They command and they say go. Whereas the leader, right? And this is, this is an effective way to lead, right? And go back and listen to that boss versus first or second season or something like that. Really great,
early
great
on.
quality stuff there, right? So a leader is an individual who possesses the ability to influence and inspire others towards accomplishment of goals. And their characteristics are, and compare this or think of this, compared to narcissistic personalities, they coach employees. They depend on goodwill. They generate enthusiasm. They say we, fixes the breakdown. So therefore they need to take responsibility for breakdowns. They show how it's done. They develop people. They give credit. They ask, right, instead of commanding. And they say, let's go together. So, so hopefully that just kind of creates a little bit more of a distinction between, narcissistic personality bosses, if you will, versus like good quality leaders that really care about you and not just trying to use you to bolster them up. And you mentioned self-esteem, John, and one thing that when self-esteem can get really toxic is, and I've been learning this in the coursework I've been doing with Stanford, is they're always like with really toxic self-esteem, they call it leveling. So you're always leveling and positioning yourself against other people, and therefore using other people or pushing other people down so you can build yourself back up. And that's another classic quality of narcissism as well. So I just want to mention that. And it's not like in healthy self-esteem, you're not doing, you're not comparing yourself to others all the time, but there is a sense of, we have like the self that we're really trying to continually get to as we discuss so many of these different topics on Men Talking Mindfulness is the capital S self. And the capital S self, it part of those 8 C's of the self, 2 of them, we talked this last week with Dr. Frank, which is such an inspiring episode, are confidence and courage, right? That's part of us. So, we need to develop those skills, or that's not even develop. We need to bring forth those skills that are already inside of us. And that's just going to help us to rise into a natural and a healthy self-esteem.
Yeah, 100%, man. And more great comments coming in. So this is an episode that's very interactive. So I definitely appreciate it. We got a comment or a question here: are narcissists born or are they made? And I think I don't know this for sure. Again, Will and I are not clinicians, but for my belief and my opinion is that narcissists are made. They are made through negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement in the family, in social circles, in culture, in school. And I think the probably that 1%, I wonder if that is, taking into account the world since social media. Granted, it's been 20 years or so since social media has been out. But I wonder what it was prior to social media versus what it is now. I think social media definitely plays into narcissism, like you talked about, Will, the social media sluts, or I think that's what you call them. It's pretty harsh, but
some hard languages, some hard words around ideas.
It sticks. That one stuck in my mind, man.
That's why I do it, and I hate to be so crass sometimes. But you get the point.
Yeah. So those social media people who are constantly seeking the likes, the shares, the comments, the interactions. And, I've been guilty of that. I can still be guilty of that. When our show does really well, me and Will, hey, man, we got this many listens. And that, yes, there's ego in there, 100% transparency. There's an ego in there. But also what I like to see is that the show is growing because the impact of the show and what it is we're doing is growing. So, or at least that's what I like to tell myself. I think that's what we're doing. And then,
how gaslighting me, John.
And then I think culture. Coming back to the question, culture can also cultivate or foster narcissism, where we celebrate the individual achievement over the community well-being. And I think that helps to potentially foster narcissism. So in my opinion, narcissists are made and not born. And that said, with that in mind, if they're made, can it be undone, right? Can a narcissist change his or her ways to not be a narcissist? And I think that is another, question for our audience, but also for you, Will. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, I actually listened to a really great podcast and doing research at this from Dr. Phil. He has a little, they call Fill in the Blank, which is kind of cool. So it's more of a casual conversation. It's really fucking cool. Actually, really very well done how he broke this down. And, and he's a professional in this space. And narcissism comes from the environment. It's not like a genetic thing. Or I guess it can be because of, we talked to Dr. Frank last week, Dr. Frank Anderson, about like transgenerational trauma. So if you potentially have a father or a mother that's a narcissist and they carry that in their DNA and the DNA is passed, from one person to the next, right? And so you can have that energy, but a lot of it comes from the environment is what I've learned. So if you have a rough upbringing, or you're isolated or left alone, or you develop these ways of behaving in order to kind of soothe yourself in some way, and it becomes a coping mechanism. And then they also, he was talking about, they're almost reluctant to change because what they're doing is working for them. They think it is. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, I've made it so far. So, and it starts and it happens more in adult life narcissism. I don't know if we have the ability as a child to, we're already so self-centered anyway as a child, because that's just how our brains are, and our needs need to be met, and we have no other way to satisfy those needs except for asking for help from other people. And there's so much attention given to us as children. But I really feel also, Jon, it'll really be interesting after almost 20 years of social media, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse, especially especially children, like 3, 4, 5 years old, like a way that adult or parents pacify their children, you just give them their phone.
Yeah.
And, it's always this very myopic, vision of themselves. And then I'm just thinking of all the selfies, Jon. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And then trying to continually, develop creating patterns of behaviors in order to create content for likes and this and that. And it's always looking out, always trying to receive glory and adoration and appreciation from outside instead of working from within. And that's why mindfulness and the practice of mindfulness are so incredibly important, because they get us on the inside to really get to that self leadership. Mm-hmm. But it takes practice, and it's not necessarily. I think there's also we're going to talk about dopamine in a couple of weeks, and there's a dopamine thing going on here as well, because the more likes we get, the more excited we get, and the more content we're going to put out. Right. Whereas like when we're meditating, breathing, and slowly developing ourselves, whenever you start like kind of your journey with mindfulness or just kind of self-care, it's a slow process, and there's not necessarily a lot of oh, that's wonderful, look at you, like there's not likes going on the inside. But it is helpful, Jon, to have like accountability, to work with a team of people that are like very empathetic, aren't a bunch of narcissistic assholes or something like that, but really trying to hold you to your highest esteem, but also realize that you're a human being and doing the best you can. So, right.
Yeah. And then I think coming back to the changing the behavior, just like anything, changing any type of behavior, it starts with an awareness, right? You have to be aware that you have something that needs to change, right? Whether that's narcissism, whether it's you're being unhealthy in some way, whatever the case is, you have to be aware of it. And then over and above being aware of it, like you said before, Will, a lot of narcissists see, hey, you know what? This has worked for me in my whole life. Why do I want to change? I've been successful. I've gotten this. I've gotten that. Why do I want to change? So there has to be an awareness. And then over and above that awareness, you have to have the desire to change. And I think that's where you can start to employ the tools that are out there. And what are those tools? Well, here we are, Men Talking Mindfulness. I think one of them is mindfulness. That helps you to be aware. So maybe it doesn't start with the awareness. Maybe it actually starts with the mindfulness, and the mindfulness allows you to become aware. So maybe that, I don't know, maybe it's the chicken and the egg game, right? Which one comes first, the mindfulness or the awareness? And so mindfulness can be a tool for that. Finding ways to practice empathy and compassion. Those two are very much related, right? I always see compassion as basically the action arm of empathy. Like you're wanting to do something about someone else's challenges or pain or whatever their feelings are. You're wanting to reach out and lend a helping hand is that action arm of the empathy. And then that regular self-reflection, which is a part of mindfulness, is a part of meditation. As you start to turn inward, you start to become more aware. So I think those are some of the things that can help to turn mindfulness, to turn narcissism around. And then as far as dealing with a narcissist, sorry,
yeah,
you
I was
got something
going to say, Jon. No, I mean, I really thought what really hit me as we're studying this, it's like the inability to read the room.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, you know, I mean, I don't know. Well, let's talk about that for a moment. Like, 'cause that's like a classic narcissistic trait. Is on the inability to read the room, to see like, oh, everything revolves around me. I can't do anything wrong. And it doesn't matter if you can't read the room, you're not taking in anybody that's in the room, or you see people that are there. But I guess a narcissist would view people as chess pieces.
Yeah.
How can I get them right in order to whatever, my egotistical expression of whatever I'm trying to get in that room, or if somebody else is taking a lot of attention, they're going to try to undercut that person in order to get their own attention, and not even realizing that that behavior is being viewed by other people. They're being judged by other people, and they're probably being seen as like a bit of a jerk or an asshole or something like that, because it's like,
right.
Wow, like why would you even do that?
Right.
But I thought it was really interesting, like. And I know people like this. It's just like,
for sure,
gosh,
we all do.
That person's really going there again.
Yeah.
I mean, they have no idea that everyone else is like rolling their eyes. But
anyway. What pops into my mind is we spoke about this yesterday, right? The rebranding of Twitter, and like the Twitter versus Meta battle that's going on, and like I would say that is classic narcissism at play.
Exactly.
But one of the other points that we wanted to talk about, and I see a comment about it as well, so it seems timely, is what can this narcissism that can is in and of itself a mental disorder, or can be, and what other mental health issues can that narcissistic behavior lead to? I mean, you're never happy with yourself or others, so that can cause depression, right? You have these ideas of what the future should look like, but you don't feel that you're ever going to get there, or can't ever get there, so you're going to have anxiety. So that depression and the anxiety can definitely be some of the mental health disorders that can even further exacerbate the narcissistic behavior. So the narcissism can cause these disorders, and those disorders can further exacerbate the narcissism. It's kind of a downward spiral. So again, coming back to what I talked about before, you have to become aware if you are a narcissist so that you can address it, not just so that you don't hurt others around you. That's a huge reason not to, or that is a huge reason to address the narcissism rather, but also so that you don't hurt yourself, right? Mentally, so that you don't go down the depression and the anxiety roads. Yes, we all, human beings, we're still going to have times that we suffer depression. There are still going to be times that we suffer anxiety, but that doesn't mean that we are anxious people or depressed people. I find that you could go down those roads pretty quickly if you don't address the narcissism. You're going to end up feeling depressed or anxious regularly, and actually become a depressed person or an anxious person.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to say something, John, that maybe can help develop. I think one of the big things that we're seeing here with narcissism is that inability to read the room and understand other people, have empathy. And maybe check with your doctor, do your own research, but seriously, maybe like an MDMA assisted therapy session could really be helpful, because that brings right into the love, right into the empathy, right into the compassion of humanity that's within all of us. So maybe that's one way to kind of begin to see and give you ability to reflect on how if you're feeling like you're a narcissist or something like that, and what we're saying you want to change, like maybe it's tough to do it on your own with just regular talk therapy. Like maybe, a psychedelic experience could be very helpful in this regard. And I'm not saying you should do it, and just disclaimer on up front on that. But I mean, I could imagine that from my own experience with that kind of medicine, it's pretty incredible where it can take you and what it can open for you is the big thing. And then integrating that awareness and taking steps and continually working in order to develop more of that empathy and that connection to other people in a deep and meaningful way.
So we've talked a lot about the narcissists themselves. What about those in a relationship with a narcissist? A lot of the comments are about that. I've been in a relationship with a narcissist. How can one get out of that narcissistic relationship? And then how do you heal? How do you recover from being in that narcissistic relationship? Let's talk about that a little bit. Any ideas, any opinions, thoughts?
Well, I mean, just from the research that I've done, and I mentioned also, it's like so hard. You just feel so empty when you're with a narcissist. It's like nobody else exists. It's like I got to put up with this behavior. Why did I put myself in this situation? Through my research, it says establish boundaries.
Yeah,
really key. Like really establish solid boundaries. So maybe that could be, a particular. Only going to stay here for an hour. Or only going to talk to them for a certain amount of time, or not going to try to put myself in a situation where they're trying to grab my attention or anybody else's. That's just it's hard. Like I have somebody in my family that was married to a the covert narcissist, and it's really difficult to be around this person, the covert narcissist. Just
for sure. I was going to say,
go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, find a way to get them to therapy. But again, if they're the narcissist, they're most likely going to have to do them themselves. They're perfect. They're not going to have you tell them that they need therapy, but you could use the therapy yourself, right? You could do that self-care, and maintain your own mental and physical and spiritual wellness through that. So that's in the relationship itself while it's still going on. But then afterwards, like once that relationship is severed, there may still be this, specifically if you've worked with someone who's gaslighted you, you may get like this thought in your head like, oh man, it was me. I was the terrible person. I need to go back to them, and I need to get, help for myself. Well, I think, again, coming back to the boundaries, but, sever the relationship if possible. And I saw, there's definitely times when that is harder done than said, for sure. But you have to recover from that through that self-care, healthcare, mental health, all the things that we've talked about on the show, taking care of yourself, going out and seeking support from your friends, your family, and have them support you and show you that you are in fact not the cause of what it is you're feeling. I think that's important. So, and then go and again, seek that mental health support for yourself, seek that professional help, should you need to go that route. I think those are important things in addressing your relationship and then addressing your recovery from that relationship.
I have, good deal on the recovery. Because it could be, if you've been really gaslighted for a very, very, very long time, it's got to be difficult to recover. Like, what reality am I really in?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So maybe seeking some help, or just putting yourself around good people, and having a good supportive group of people around you that really see you for who you are and understand where you want to go and are going to help you to do that. Another thing I have here as far as dealing with in relationship is don't let them have the power. That's key. Like, don't let them have the power, and that could also mean like don't let them take your attention. Don't when I see a narcissist, I just ignore them. Like, it's just like, I don't like when they try to grab my attention by doing or saying something ridiculous or whatever. I just don't give them any of my power or any of my attention.
Right.
Just act like what they did or what they said was just kind of in the past so quickly. And then don't let them make you feel bad about yourself.
Right.
Or bad about who you are. Like, that's the one way of manipulating. And the last thing I have here, as far as like, don't take the bait or don't be the bait. So, don't take the bait, like, so that maybe it's attention grabbing or they're saying something, they're gaslighting you in some way, and and you're trying to defend yourself or say that's not true or whatever. Don't be the bait in some way. So, so just something, and again, at gaslighting, because they just don't, maybe also, John, what I have here, when you do confront a narcissist, or you're dealing with some sort of narcissist, or kind of calling them on their shit, whatever, with narcissism, the way they come back is, I didn't say that.
Right.
That's one thing. Another one is, that's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yep. That's all the gaslighting, man.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And then another one is, they're always making it about you and never taking responsibility for anything they're doing.
Right.
So a couple more here is like, why are you being so sensitive? Right. I'm sure our audience has probably heard of some of these before. Another one here is, what's wrong with you?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
all the positive things are about me, all the negative things are about you, right? They take all the accolades and none of the blame, is what I've seen. And coming back to the dealing with a relationship and then recovering from those relationships, got some great comments here. One is, it's best not to deal with them if possible, right? So but if it's already too late and you're in a relationship with them, we've talked about ways to deal with that, manage that. But then once you're aware of that trait, those personality traits, because you may be an empath already, you may get sucked into another narcissistic relationship. So you have to become aware of those traits and then try not to go into those relationships again in the future, right? So they said, learn how you let someone like this into your life in the first place. So there you go. Learn that, and then try not to let that type of person, that type of personality back into your life ever again, because it does suck your energy. It sucks your life away. It sucks away your time and energy. And those are finite resources that none of us ever get back. So there you go.
Wow. This is like, so many wonderful comments here.
Yeah.
Well, I thought this would be good. This is one of our boys, Samuel Vocek. He said, did you encounter many narcissists in the SEAL teams, John?
Yeah.
And then how about me in the yoga world? So I'll let you go first, John, if you like.
Well, yeah. Again, we came back to where narcissistic behavior could be beneficial. And I think the SEAL teams is one of those areas. You need some type A personalities who kind of think they're invincible at times, because what we do on the battlefield is somewhat unrealistic when you look at it with
way outside of reality, right?
Yeah. We make it happen. And the downside, though, is coming back to that lack of taking a risk. I've run into people in the SEAL teams who don't want to take a risk. And again, I address my time when I've lacked wanting to take a risk because of the fear of imperfection, the fear of looking bad, sounding bad, of performing poorly. So yes, Sam, I've definitely run into narcissists in the SEAL teams, and that has both benefited the SEAL teams and hurt the SEAL teams 100%. So Will, what about you and the yoga students, and what about other yoga instructors?
Yeah, students, I don't necessarily get to know all of my students, so, I don't really have those kind of interactions necessarily with the students, but teachers, absolutely. I think there is a lot of showiness for yoga teachers. Like, look at me do this pose. And there's a way that, and as a teacher, it's important to demonstrate poses, but the way that you demonstrate poses and the way you speak to the poses, it doesn't have to be about look at how incredibly my form is, and listen to all the wonderful words coming out of my mouth. Beautiful, way of tone that I'm speaking. It's like, oh my God, dude, shut the fuck up. It's just, it is. It's sad that there's teachers out there that are like that. Typically, they're not, I don't know, their classes might not be as popular, or they're just they really seem, I heard someone describe the other day about what it's like to really be taught by a teacher, and this goes in any place, but definitely in more of the spiritual or mindfulness and meditation practices or yoga practices. When you're really connecting with a teacher that really knows their stuff, and they're delivering whatever they're teaching you from their own experience, but it's like a fresh loaf of bread. So it's like you're just like, oh, well, I really needed that. Like that feels so good right now.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like a narcissistic teacher, it's going to be stale and old because they're not taking risks. They're not even reading the fucking room. Like, think about it. They're not even reading the room. They have no idea what their students are doing because they're so locked in their own personality and still trying to be
fixed mindset.
Sound perfect. What's that?
They got the fixed mindset.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I've had students of mine that go take other teachers, and they'll be like, "Oh, I took so and so's class." I'm like, "Oh, what'd you think?" And they're like, "Oh, it just seemed so." They were just so inauthentic, or so not connected, or just they didn't. It was stale.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for when you're really speaking to a genuine person, authentic person that is dealing with their own stuff, but also has a sense of authority in the sense of like an expertise of what they're doing. Like it should feel like there's an authenticity and a vulnerability and a yin and a yang and connection in a really meaningful way, because we're listening and responding and synthesizing like the actual moment for what it is, instead of saying, zooming out and being like, oh, well, I'm so important that, you obviously think I'm awesome. I put on my favorite shirt today or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, wow.
I did put on my favorite shirt.
Did you? Oh,
and you didn't even recognize how.
Shirt on, John. But I think that's like, so if you're not feeling like you're being taught by a fresh loaf of bread, then I wouldn't go to that class. And maybe they're not a narcissist, and maybe they're just a younger teacher and they're developing their skills as a teacher. So give them that grace. But if someone's been teaching for a long time and you feel like what they're doing is stale and old and boring, you might be a narcissist, and take a step back.
Well, right on, man. I think we've covered a lot here, brother. Unpacked, what a narcissist is, the attributes of a narcissist, the types of narcissists that are out there, dealing with a narcissist, how to not become a narcissist, and then if you are one, or if you're in a relationship with one, how to deal with those things as well, those challenges. You got anything else, man? I think we're coming up on.
We're pretty good. Maybe just a couple questions if I'm just rolling through. Some of the comments here, and then have some questions.
See one.
There's David. Yeah.
One that's just kind of an administrative question for our audience. Yes, this is streamed to YouTube. It's streamed live, but then you can go back and watch it later. And again, it's also out in podcast form the following Monday. So we go live on Wednesdays at about 1 p.m. Eastern time. And then we go, and then that resides on YouTube forever. And then we go on podcast the following Monday morning. So that's when you'll be able to listen to this differently. So that's an admin question that was coming up. And then a couple comments. Getting out, change can be difficult if you grew up in that environment. The chaos is comfortable. The chaos is comfortable. And you don't always self-recognize you are stuck in a loop or getting into the same types of relationships. Great point there. All right. Anything else there, Will?
No, they have they suck your energy, and they really do.
Yeah, for sure.
Best not to deal with them if possible, right? And again, if you're working with someone that is gaslighting you, that is being appropriate at work, like one thing that action over words, like if you're going to set a boundary with this particular narcissist, like follow through with your action, or something like, hey, if you're going to do that again, I'm going to go to HR and I'm going to take care of this problem and I'm going to report you. Right. And if you don't, then you've given them so much power, because now they think like whatever, like, oh, they're afraid of me or this or that, or what I did wasn't so bad anyway. It's their problem. They're too sensitive. So, take action. And that action could just be like, taking them off of your social media or just eliminating them, sadly, from your life. And I say that as like, as an ambassador of compassion, John, but maybe that's the one thing that maybe will wake them up. But you're also protecting yourself in those circumstances too, and not like taking your energy or your most precious element or thing that we have on this planet is time. So really take a look at where you're putting your time. And if you're putting your time and investing your time into narcissists, I would definitely suggest going another direction.
Yeah.
So,
Setting and managing those boundaries. That's and respecting those boundaries and making sure they respect those boundaries. A lot of the time we'll set a boundary and then we draw that line in the sand and then they cross it, or we cross it, and we're like, okay, well, I'll just draw a new line, right? Well, we have to set those boundaries and respect them, and then make sure the other person in the relationship respects them. So that's a little bit more about boundaries there for you. Dana, I saw that comment. So
yeah, thank you for that, Dana.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fantastically engaging. And this is what we're hoping that, the future shows will be like, continue to be engaging like this with the comments on the side, but we also hope to have those voice memos. So if you didn't hear at the beginning of the show, if you tuned in a little bit late, in the future, we're going to be taking voice memos and addressing your questions on the air. We're going to play your voice memo and then answer that question on the air. And to do that, you can just simply text the letters MTM to the number 33777. So it's 33777, text MTM, and that will take you to the link to leave us that voice memo. And Will, I'm going to turn it over to you to do the closing practice, and then we're going to wrap this up in a bow and call it done.
Yeah, what I'll say is, hey, if you've been listening to the show for a while and haven't left us a review, WTF? Like, we would love your review, right? And that's my narcissist coming out right now, John. It's coming. I'm just kidding. But no, thank everybody out there for tuning in. Let's do this closing practice, and we're just gonna take. We're gonna do 3 parachute breaths. We're gonna take a really swift inhale. Take a very elongated exhale out the mouth like you're blowing out a candle. Stick around for this because it can help you with the rest of your day. So sit, stand, close eyes open. You can do this driving, doing whatever else. Start with an exhale. Empty, long exhale out. Take a nice little sniff in, and let it go. Keep going. Push it out. Hit that bottom. Hit that emptiness again. In. Out. Kind of like a parachute, right? Floating gently down to the earth. We'll do one more. In and out. Awesome, guys. Thanks for showing up. And if you want to do more of that breathing and meditation, I'm going to plug my Wednesday evening class, John. So 5 o'clock, the midweek refresh set, Wednesday today. It's free or donation-based on Insight Timer. It's on willnotfear.com. I should probably put it on our website, John. But
yeah, for sure.
Hit me up if you want. And we're also on social media, Men Talking Mindfulness. I posted there. But join. It's 30 minutes, breath and meditation, and great way to enhance your practice, whether you've been practicing for years or you're new to this work. And it's free. So no reason not to drop in. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, John, for this wonderful episode. Thank you for all these people that have put together all this Wikipedia, information and stuff like that. And again, really appreciate all you being here. And John, last word.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a couple of things that, where again, just last plug for the merch store that's going to be coming out here, and that's on our website. So Will mentioned we're on social media, but if you just go to our website, mentalkingmindfulness.com, that merch store is going to be up there soon. And a team email is on there too. Like if you want to email me and Will at the same time, and that'll also go to our production manager, David. It's just team, TEAM, at mentalkingmindfulness.com. If you have any questions that you wanted to email us that you don't necessarily want aired on the show, please send those to us. Or if you have any recommendations for topics or guests, please send those to us via that email too. It's team at mentalkingmindfulness.com. But hey, thank you. Our audience, thank you so much for joining us here today. We sincerely appreciate you tuning in live or after the show. If you got something out of this episode, please share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, whoever you feel could benefit. And please, like Will said, give us a review, subscribe to the podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, blah, blah, blah. All right, that's enough self-plugging. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you. Until next time, peace.
Peace, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.